Hi everybody, welcome to Water with Hila this week. It's just a short one because there's a lot to write. I wanna do it properly, so I want to write it so you can see the facts in front of you and you can share them. What I wanted to talk about, first of all, happy Purim. If you celebrated, if you didn't celebrate it, you must have celebrated something, because this whole past week was full of celebrations. The Iranians started with the Nowruz, there was the Ramadan for the Muslims, there's Palm Sunday for the Christians today, there's Holi for the Indians or Hindus, there is Purim for us. So, hope you celebrated. I was thinking, if I would dress up this Purim, what would I wear? I thought I would dress up as a UNIFIL soldier pretending to keep the peace, because that was pretty much the landscape of my youth in Nahariya. When I was a child, UNIFIL soldiers, I don't know if you've ever seen a UN official or soldier or anyone other than TV, but for us in Nahariya, they were very much part of the landscape. They were stationed in Nakura, and well, Nahariya is the last town before the border with Lebanon. There's many little villages on the way, and then there's Rosh Hanikra, which is Nakura. You got the Israeli army post. After that, you've got the UNIFIL force, and after that used to be South Lebanese army. Of course, now it's Hezbollah and terrorist organizations. So during the beginning of the UNIFIL forces being stationed there, they had to ensure the peace. They had to ensure that there was no attacks coming into Israel, because they didn't need to do anything from our side into Lebanon, because we weren't attacking. All they had to do is ensure that we are not going to be attacked. And there weren't very much. Look, there are many soldiers. There's now 2,000, I think. There used to be 6,000 in its peak time, but not all of them are the same. But there was a lot of them were not exactly neutral to the situation. So not only they didn't prevent things, in some cases they actually participated, not only passively, also actively participated. Just to give you a few examples, along the border with Lebanon, we have a patrol road. And the patrol road means that Israeli army vehicles patrol up and down and just overlooking the border, making sure there's no suspicious activity, no infiltrations, no rips in the fence, and so on. And during, one of my brothers was in the army, the Hezbollah, Amal, there wasn't Hezbollah back then, it was PLO, Amal, maybe another terrorist organization. They have a lot of terrorist organizations. The Palestinian liberation criminals. So they used to plant booby traps and bombs for our troops. And the UNIFIL forces used to see that, because they were watching that with their binoculars, and they were overlooking, they were also patrolling and also viewing what's happening. And they saw it, they saw them doing it. Not only they didn't stop them from doing it, let's say you can't interfere, but they didn't warn us. They didn't warn us, and I know of a few incidents where our army vehicles exploded, that booby traps exploded underneath the army vehicles and caused injuries and worse to our soldiers. So that was one thing. Another thing they did in 1985, well, in 1982 there was Peace of Galilee War, because once the UNIFIL forces were there, and the terrorist organizations found it more difficult to infiltrate into Israel, to commit terror attacks, they increased their missiles and rockets being launched onto our towns, and to my town and every other place in the north of Israel. And then Peace of Galilee War was imminent. We had to go in there to stop them. And when we went to stop them, there was like 10 or 11 kilometers taken into Lebanon to become a safety zone, a security zone. And Southern Lebanese Army was together with us. Southern Lebanese Army was a force of Christian Lebanese on the southern part of Lebanon, adjacent to the border with Israel. And Israel supported, the Israeli army supported the South Lebanese army. And there was very good communication and cooperation between the two forces. But in 1985, Finnish UNIFIL soldiers kidnapped. So Christian soldiers kidnapped Christian soldiers, handed them over to radical Muslims, basically. So Finnish UNIFIL soldiers kidnapped South Lebanese soldiers and handed them over to Amal terrorist organization, which caused a big collision between the two and more problems. And then after that, in 2000, so slowly Israel withdrew from Lebanon until in 2000 Israel left Lebanon altogether and took every South Lebanese army personnel, family members, anyone closely connected to them out of Lebanon for fear of their lives, because if they would have stayed there, they would have been slaughtered. So when Israel left Lebanon, they left with us. Many of them live in Israel, many of them moved to America, to other places around the world, but they are refugees. You want to talk about refugees? They're refugees. So they had to leave Lebanon. And then UNIFIL had to ensure that Hezbollah and Amal and PLO and Fatah, whoever, there's so many of them back then, that they do not strengthen their forces along the border and they don't get closer into Israel. But they did not only they didn't prevent it, they actually passively participated in their ability to rearm, strengthen. UNIFIL was meant to prevent incoming weapons from outside of Lebanon into Lebanon for the terrorist organization. And they didn't. And on the 7th of October, 7th of October must be a date, I need to look it up. But on the 7th of October 2000, 3 Israeli soldiers have been kidnapped from Har Dov in Israel. And they were kidnapped by the Hezbollah or Amal. I think it was either Hezbollah or Amal, but they were kidnapped under the watchful eye of UNIFIL filming the entire event. So people, they actually saw what was happening. They have an obligation to inform the headquarters in New York when there is extreme situations evolving. And Israel actually has proof that they did more than passively participated, which is very much like the UNRWA situation in Gaza. So they did not just passively participate, they actively participated and assisted terrorist organizations against Israel. That led to the murder of those three young Israeli men were murdered, of course, and then they were returned to Israel. And in 2010, there was an incident when the Lebanese army, which is not the Southern Lebanese army anymore, shot a high-ranked officer, killed a high-ranked officer inside Israel. Somewhere that wasn't in Lebanon, we weren't in an operation, and they surrounded themselves with UNIFIL soldiers so that we cannot react. And when the UNIFIL soldiers moved and we did react, they tried to stop us. They didn't try and stop the Lebanese army from attacking us, but as soon as we retaliated, they asked us to stop. Does it sound familiar? It's all the same kind of, they behave the same way. It doesn't matter if it's north of Israel, south of Israel, Gaza, Lebanon. The UN is very one-sided, and it's not on our side, and it's not actually even on the right side, not of history, not of humanity. And like I said, there are 2,000 soldiers, so I'm sure that not everybody feels the same. But a lot of the things that have happened under the watchful eye of UNIFIL were corrupt. So I'm gonna prepare that for next week. That's gonna be my next Sunday Coffee with Hila. I'm going to give you more details, more information, in-depth information, because it's very complicated. The situation in Lebanon became very complicated because there's a lot of forces influencing that country. But like I said, I was less concerned with other countries and more concerned with my own country, where I know, where I came from, what I experienced, and what we've experienced and cannot be portrayed on TV because nobody ever showed anything from what happened in Israel. No one ever shared the truth. Like, no one would show you on BBC that an Israeli army vehicle exploded on a booby trap that was planted by the Palestinian terrorist organizations under the watchful eye of the UN, who hasn't warned us. You would never in a lifetime hear something like that. But these are the true facts. And these are the facts that, because you've been deprived of them, you have no ability to judge the situation accurately. You have no ability to see the real situation in Israel because you are not shown the truth. Or a lot of the truth is being hidden from you. So that's what I'm here for. And all right, so I'm going to aim for a proper video or slides and information next week. And until then, have a lovely week and be well.